What's good, y'all? It's your boy Sean Peter Blanc. Hey! Today we will be reacting to somebody I've done a few reactions to, and I really like his content. I really love his content. The boy Parvision. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe. Also, the link to this video will be in the description box, so make sure you go show Parvision some love. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and of course Twitch. And I also have a Discord. Today's video we will be talking about Nolan Montblanc, right? Nolan Montblanc. The title of the video is "The GOROSEI Are Competent. Did they mastermind this?" Montblanc, Nolan's truth revealed. So I don't know what this could possibly be about, but we're gonna get into it. You know, I like Nolan Montblanc's character. I like the whole Skypiea backstory with him and Kagura. You know, if y'all see my flashback stream, y'all seen that I thought that should have been a lot higher than where we actually placed it. Wasn't my choice, or it wasn't solely my choice, but you know, it is what it is. Now, I don't want to waste too much time, so let's get into the video. You know, it's going to be a little lengthy, so let's get into it. All right.
The world's equilibrium cannot be maintained forever, and Nolan almost broke the balance. Roger was the one who ended up breaking the equilibrium, but had he experienced what Nolan did, then he would not have become Pirate King. Nolan angered the gods and was killed for his transgressions against the heavens. You think I'm lying, but it's true. I think Nolan would have made it to Laugh Tale if he were a pirate, but the reason he was killed was because he wasn't a pirate. So let's talk about why Nolan could have been the main character of One Piece. And if you're new to my channel, the way I view the world is by making connections. So let me connect you to my vision, the Parvision.
Yes,
Nolan
sir.
defied the Skypian god Kashigami, and maybe the series of unfortunate events that followed after could be seen as an act of God retaliating against Nolan, but it wasn't random. See, Nolan went to Jaya on an exploratory mission but ended up executing a god and liberating a land oppressed by a false belief in an illusionary god, not realizing he returned to a world oppressed by a much more insidious power. In a way, Nolan believed in the wrong gods and would have lived if he were a pirate. Let's take a look at his more successful counterpart, Roger. I think Oda purposely gave us the direct comparison of Nolan to Roger. They had a lot of the same attitudes in terms of adventure. In a lot of ways, Roger was more of an adventurer than a pirate. If we were to boil things down, Nolan was a really strong botanist with a boat, and Roger was a really strong geologist with a boat. It's funny because at the end of the day, Roger was just a guy.
Nolan D. Montblanc. That's what we should call him. But I mean, yeah, like I never really actually look at Nolan as kind of a less successful Roger. You know what I'm saying? If anything, I kind of look at like Roger being like a failed Joy Boy, right? Like kind of like he was like Roger could have been Joy Boy, but he was too early to be a successful Joy Boy, right? Because he didn't have the ancient weapons. You know, like, or Poseidon wasn't born yet. I mean, we don't know much about Uranus, so I can't really talk about Uranus. Pluton was possible to get, but Nolan could have possibly been like another failed version of Joy Boy as well, right? But Roger, I would say, is probably just a little more successful than Nolan, but still I kind of look at Roger as a failed Joy Boy. I kind of look at like there's possibly been like multiple people multiple candidates of Joy Boy, but they all failed for some reason. Some of them were like too early, some of them were too late. Now we got Luffy, right, who's at the right time, and most likely he will succeed.
guy looking for rocks. And at the end of this video, I want to lay out a really funny parallel between Roger and Nolan that's based off of my Mad Tale video that I put out earlier this week. But continuing with more of the parallels, Roger became a world-famous pirate and Nolan was a world-famous adventurer. Both of them, by the end of their stories, were executed in their hometown, where both of them were forever imprinted on the history of the world. Technically, neither of them died because none of them were forgotten.
Facts though, facts. Like they were. It do, like, when you look at Nolan's execution, it does look a lot like Roger's execution, except he died hated, right? And Roger died smiling and all that, and set off the whole pirate era. But Nolan, I don't recall him ever like setting off any era. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, a lot, but definitely a lot of parallels.
More than the surface level parallels, both of their descendants suffered the same way. Cricket and Ace both were incredibly burdened by their family history. Both of them lived to overturn the legacies left by their ancestors in a certain way. Both Ace and Cricket were bullied in their youth about their ancestry, directly and indirectly, which forced them both to set sail to make their own legacy. But Ace, at the end of the day, wanted to make someone else the Pirate King to overwrite the history of the first Pirate King, Roger, whereas Cricket wanted to overturn the popularized story of Nolan to prove that he was right, not because he was doing it for Nolan, but rather to finally clear his own name and his own future. Both of them shared the exact same burdens, but from completely opposite angles. Though both of their ancestors were world famous, Nolan's was through humiliation, whereas Roger's was through demonization. They both had the same exact last words, but yet there was a specific difference. See, Roger died proclaiming a great treasure existed somewhere called the One Piece, whereas Nolan died proclaiming a great treasure within the great city of gold, El Dorado, existed.
Man, Parvision with the bars, man. You making me think, my G. You making me think, man. Like, I never put that parallel together with Ace and Cricket. Like, I never even seen them like even comparable characters. But now you kind of broke that down. I'm like, dang, man. You know, open my eyes to some things, man. I'm starting to see the Parvision right there, boy. I'm starting to see that Parvision. Let's continue, though.
They both even named their treasures that were the end of their recent journeys. So you could say Roger would have been a better YouTuber than Nolan, because I'd probably click on the One Piece over El Dorado. No offense to Nolan. But that's not the only reason why I say there's a difference. It all comes back to being a pirate. See, at both of their executions, neither one of them had proof or could substantiate their claims, but yet they both died completely different deaths. But look at what happened at Nolan's death. For some reason, they set up Nolan with a random dude there to testify against Nolan and to break his truth. Is that a coincidence? No. That's something that is planned. They brought up a fake crewmate of Nolan's to essentially crucify him and make him a martyr. Why did they need to include this person? The kingdom already knew Nolan was a liar. Sure, the citizens may not have fully believed it, but the king was there. He saw that Nolan was a liar. What more would he need to want to execute him? But then, even more than that, Nolan went down in history as a liar, so much so that there were books written about him slandering his name and butchering his true story. And those stories persisted through generations, even until Cricket. Which, by the way, historical propaganda is a signature mark of a certain entity in One Piece. But you're probably by now like, okay, what's so special about this story? I knew all of this already. But again, let me ask you, who really killed Nolan? Was it the king of Louvniel? Was it the Skypian gods? Was it Nolan himself? Was it the knock-up stream? The correct answer...
Fate. You're going to say fate. I'm going to call it fate.
Is the knock-up stream, right? Because had that not happened, Jaya would still be on the blue sea and Nolan wouldn't be a liar. But it's actually deeper than that. In fact, I think Nolan was scheduled to die the moment he landed on Jaya. So let's walk back Nolan's story a little bit with more details. So in the year 1122, Nolan becomes the first intruders to land on Jaya and visit Shandora in 400 years, according to Kalgara, which is an important note. But fast forwarding through Nolan's story, we get to an interesting panel here. After Nolan and Kalgara become homeboys for life, Kalgara brings Nolan to Shandora, where he basically says the treasure isn't the gold, it's the bell and the poneglyph that were held as the real treasure, so Nolan's crew can take all the gold they want. During the crew's search, they stumbled upon two things, an eternal pose and a map of Jaya. Kalgara says we must have taken that from invaders. Well, wait, that's really weird. Didn't Kalgara just say no one has visited the island in 400 years? So how did the intruders that never made it to the island have a map of Jaya? On top of that, the map has the hidden city Shandora mapped.
Hey, Parvision, I got a question for you, man. Do you have any theories on the missing eye, the left eye of Jaya, right? You know how it looks like it's a missing eye. You know, Oda definitely puts in a lot of like he makes a lot of eye references, right? Like when you see a lot of cover art, a lot of cover pages, some of them have like Luffy like closing his left eye or like blinking his left eye or something. Like it's always it's a lot of eye references. So I'm curious if you got any theories on that. You know, I kind of think that might be a reference of where the One Piece is. I know there's been this theory of I think Arthur, library, either O'Hara or the Library of O'Hara. One of them YouTubers, I can't remember which one. I always confuse sometimes. They believe that could be like where Laugh Tale was, and maybe it sunk into the sea. And then we kind of look at Enies Lobby and how that's like sunk into the sea, and maybe, you know, they made a lot of connections of Enies Lobby being where the One Piece is, being where Laugh Tale is, like under that waterfall, and how it used to be part of the Eye of Jaya, the left eye of Jaya. Let's get back into the video.
Out on it. So again, if there were no visitors to the island and the Shandorans were largely isolated, how does an invader have a map like this if no one has been to the island in 400 years? Doesn't that mean this map is from the Void Century? And it's one thing to map out the outside, but the inside of it too? So who could have had this map? Well, we were given another clue. Along with it was an internal pose, and I'm assuming it's of Jaya. And guess what entity has the ability to take away log pose characteristics of islands and create eternal log poses without even being on the island? The world government. So those intruders might have been people in search of Shandora on behalf of the world government, and this gets amplified by something we find out a little bit later in the Nolan story. So Nolan leaves Jaya, right? The knock-up stream happens and Jaya's in the sky. And the rest is history, right? Wrong. That's not all that happens. So Nolan goes back to Louveniel country and informs the king about Shandora, the city of gold. The king becomes entranced in the story, and then 5 years pass. And we see the king talk to Nolan saying they have finally gotten permission from Mary Joie to enter the Grand Line. From who? Yeah, the Holy Land, Mary Joie. But on top of that, Nolan is appointed to be the admiral of the exploration ship. But the king says none of Nolan's crew can come, and it's going to be the king and his soldiers. That's a very odd thing. Knowing how perilous the trip is, why would the king go himself? But also without the crew that made it there the first time. Does that seem like something you'd order for an exploration? I mean, in our history, let's think of Spain, for example. When they granted permissions to explorers like Columbus, it's not like the kings and queens would just go on these expeditions too. And Nolan's story seems heavily tied to that of Raleigh, a man who wrote exaggerated stories of El Dorado, the city of gold. And the story shares a lot of similar elements to Nolan's. But that being said, the setup for Nolan's adventure back to Jaya was already sabotaged at the start. He didn't have his crew and had to protect the king. Their fleet lost ships on the journey, and Nolan even says we'll never survive with such hastily trained soldiers as a crew. I've got to at least keep this ship that the king's on afloat, to the death if I have to. So it's reasonable to assume that had not Nolan been the absolute legendary beast of a man, this was a death trip. Nolan and the king should have died, but Nolan pulled through for him to get to Jaya and see that it was gone. And the king was not happy about Jaya being gone. So then they return back and we see the staged execution of Nolan, where the fake crewmate basically crucifies Nolan. So if you can get the feeling already, this series of events definitely was not instigated by the king of Louveniel. Rather than the king, remember what I said before? They had to get permission from Mary Joie before this trip. So let me just give you a timeline real quick. Nolan lands on Jaya in 1122, and he makes it back to Louveniel the same year. Yeah. 5 years later, in 1127, Louveniel and Nolan were approved to re-enter the Grand Line to see Jaya. And 1 year before, in 1126, is when the knock-up stream happened, shooting Jaya up into the sky. So let me ask you something. Isn't that another insane coincidence? Nolan had 5 years back, and it just so happens that it took 5 years to get approval for this trip, and the year before they get the approval, the knock-up stream happens? No, that's not a coincidence. But if you don't agree yet, let's add some details. Do you know what happens every 4 years in the One Piece world? No? Well, it's fine, because I do. It's the Reverie, which I have a big note about at the end of this video. But yeah, the Reverie happens every 4 years in the One Piece verse, which given that since there were 5-year delay in Nolan's trip, that means there was a Reverie in that time. And actually we can calculate which one, and in 2 ways. Well, one, right now the current year in the One Piece verse is 1524, and so that means the Reverie that took place was in the year 1124, which is exactly 400 years ago, which also means it was the 100th Reverie that happened before the current time, which, if you can't see why that's important, let me fill you in on that blank Reverie. That's probably when the king of Louvnia went to get the approval at the Holy Land. He had to justify this expedition somehow, which brings up an important point, at least more prevalent in the past. Countries aligned with the world government had to get approval for expeditions within the Grand Line? That's a very interesting thing, especially considering it's not like they gave any help. It's like purely regulatory. A point I'll bring up in my Void Century video that's coming up soon. But so this situation reminds me of the current Reverie. I don't imagine the king.
Hey man, I'm trying to keep up, man. I'm trying to keep up. It's a lot of stuff being thrown. So it wasn't necessarily the king that set up Montblanc. It was you. Are you saying it was like the world government that set up Montblanc? Or are you like going towards maybe like the gods, like fate kind of set up Montblanc with like knocking up Jaya right pretty much right before they get that go from the world government to go to Jaya or the city of gold, a little confused. The homie says world government set up Nolan. Do you believe that they, I guess, shot up Jaya somehow? Like maybe they're a devil fruit user possibly created a knockup stream in order to set him up. Let's continue. We're gonna continue and figure this out though. We're gonna continue to figure this out because like right now I'm trying to put the puzzle pieces in my head right now. It's just like a lot of information right now. But yeah, let me I'm gonna fast forward. I'm gonna rewind just a little bit. Just to about 30 seconds.
Happened before the current time, which, if you can't see why that's important, let me fill you in on that blank Reverie. That's probably when the king of Louvnia went to get the approval at the Holy Land. He had to justify this expedition somehow, which brings up an important point, at least more prevalent in the past. Countries aligned with the world government had to get approval for expeditions within the Grand Line? That's a very interesting thing, especially considering it's not like they gave any help. It's like purely regulatory. A point I'll bring up in my Void Century video that's coming up soon. But so this situation reminds me of the current Reverie. I don't imagine the king of Louvnia would bring this up at the round table.
But yeah, I do think that would make sense though, that the world government would you would need some type of approval to go out exploring, right? Because the world government, especially with pirates out there, like with the world having pirates, like I'm pretty sure the Marines, when they're out patrolling the oceans, they might have like I don't want to say a shoot first approach, but it's like if you don't have some type of permission, some type of a license, right? Kind of like you need a driver's license when you're driving on the road, or if you get pulled over and you ain't got one, you get in trouble. So you need some type of a license or approval to be out on the oceans. So, because if you're not, they're just going to take you as being a pirate. Like that's kind of what I would think.
But somehow it would need to get approved. And at the current Reverie, Nefertari Cobra requested a special audience with the Gorosei, and this is their response to that. After clarifying what the Nefertari's relation is to the world government, they said, "Has he cottoned onto something? Let us pray it does not derail the talks." Even here, they are worried about certain information going public, and without spoiling, we see with the current manga just how much the Gorosei try to manipulate the media.
And speaking of current manga, the recent chapter, right? The recent chapter with where they say Sabo supposedly killed Vivi. And my argument, I think I was arguing with Angel. I was arguing with Angel about why the world government were the ones who killed Nefertari Cobra and not because I don't believe Sabo killed Cobra. I believe the world government did that. You know, they even talked about like, has he cottoned on to something, right? So I think they were already kind of suspicious of Cobra, so they, you know, they wanted to kill him. And when Sabo came around, they used that moment to kill Cobra and then blame it on Sabo. You know, that's what I believe. Just, you know, since we kind of mentioned current manga, I know this video is a few weeks old, so let's continue.
So then with the King of Louvniel, I'd imagine a similar circumstance, except the Gorosei were probably way more on top of their game back then because there was a lot less things going on. So they set up a full plan to counteract Noland. They approved of a voyage that was destined to fail, as they were the ones who probably said it has to be the king and Noland who went on this trip. That was probably meant to wipe them out. As a failsafe, just in case they made it back and forth on the trip, they set up a false testimony to make sure Noland would go down in infamy. But not just that, they didn't stop there. After Noland's execution, books were released that further spread the word of Noland, which when you think about it, right, Noland was a world-famous adventurer who probably inspired other adventurers, and that is probably what the world government wanted to diffuse. And they used Noland to deter others from wanting to be an adventurer by pushing the agenda.
Man, you answered the question I was about to ask. I was about to say, okay, now I get where you're going with why, like, the world government sending Noland on a mission that they believe he was going to fail, right? They believe he was going to fail. But if, let's say, he succeeded, if he did succeed and, you know, there was gold, you know, they were still going to set him up specifically in order to die, in order to, you know, avoid his influence, right? Because that's where I was going. That's the question I was going to ask. Why did they want to kill Noland though? Why did they want to kill Noland? But his influence, him being like an adventurer and all that stuff. They didn't want people being motivated to be like Noland, so they wanted him dead even before the mission. So they of course, if they was able to get gold, if they were able to get gold, they was going to take that mission. They was going to accept or approve that mission so they could get the gold, but they still wanted Noland dead. You know, gold or not, they wanted Noland dead. Let's continue.
That being an adventurer isn't that great, and the greatest adventurer was full of lies, which is the exact same situation Roger had. They wanted to deter more pirates from completing the full circumnavigation of the globe, but the difference was Roger was a pirate from the start. He chose his execution and his death, and so they didn't expect the exact opposite to happen, where rather than lowering people's motivations to become a pirate, they gave Roger the perfect stage to spark the great pirate era. But at the end of the day, both were demonized thereafter by the world in various ways. But you're probably like, wait a second, Parvision, you missed something. Are you implying that the world government also is the cause of Jaya going into the sky? In other words, the knock-up stream. And I mean, the shoe kind of fits, doesn't it? Let's think about this for a second. When Kalgara and his tribe experienced the knock-up stream, it was for the first time, it seemed. But to reinforce that point, Noland was on Jaya for at least 1 month, and we know the knock-up stream happens 5 times a month. That means if the knock-up stream existed like it did in our current time, Noland would have seen it at least 5 times, to the point where whenever we see the knock-up stream, it's literally a giant water laser beam that you really can't miss from the island. And Cricket was able to even track it, but we have not heard a single peep about this knock-up stream, nor the Emperor Cloud that Skypiea was on, as it would bring night during daytime, another very interesting point. So, despite all of that, we have no record of either. And you know, if you were a native to a land that commonly had giant laser water beams off the coast, that's something I would inform my new best friend, like, hey buddy, if you come again, just be careful of it turning nighttime randomly during the daytime, or sometimes the ocean decides to yeet anything nearby. But yeah, so now there's 2 points with this. We know that knock-up stream can't...
Okay, alright, so we're talking about the possibility of the world government being responsible for knock-up streams. So what would that entail? How would the world government be able to create knock-up streams and then do it at such a long distance, right? Because it don't seem like, you know, you don't really see like anybody near knock-up streams when they happen. Like when the Straw Hats went to Skypiea and the knockup stream happened, there wasn't like, I mean, other than I think Blackbeard, I think the Blackbeard pirates were the only other individuals near, like, in the vicinity, right? And I would think you would need to be somewhat close in order to create knockup streams. Could this possibly be? I'm gonna throw out some. I don't know if Parvision's going to say this in the video, or if this is like, you know, I think one example could be a devil fruit. Yes, that's one idea I'm going. Could it be an ancient weapon? Right? Could it be an ancient weapon? And specifically the ancient weapon that we know least about, Uranus. Because me personally, I kind of believe that Uranus might have some weather manipulation type abilities, you know, and a knockup stream, even though that's not like a natural weather phenomenon, at least, you know, not in reality, you know, at least in our world, not that I know of, at least, maybe could exist, I don't know. Uranus could still be capable of something of that level, you know what I mean? I even say, I've said before, I believe that Uranus is heavily linked with Skypiea anyway, you know, like, because like when we look at all the ancient weapons, you got Poseidon, who is a god of the sea, right? So you and it also has to do with Fishman Island when it comes to One Piece. And then Pluton, you could say Pluton is Hades, but in One Piece translation, you could kind of say like related to land, right? And then Uranus would be the god of the sky. Let me know if I'm wrong. If I remember correctly, Uranus is the god of the sky. And the god of the sky, I would think, would be related to weather as well. And possibly Uranus in One Piece terms could be related to Skypiea or Sky Islands, or, you know, the sky, you know. So where we would find Pluton, we would probably find Pluton on some island. Uranus is in Fishman Island, I would think, or not Uranus, Poseidon is in Fishman Island, and I would think Uranus could potentially be on a sky island, you know, and it would have something to do with some weather manipulation. At least that's kind of my theory on it. Let's continue.
Can move. But from our knowledge at this point, near Jaya, the knockup stream did not exist 400 years ago. But it conveniently did right after a reverie where a king might have unintentionally alerted the world government that they stumbled upon Jaya. Thereafter, not one, but two major coincidences lined up. The first one is not only did the knockup stream happen conveniently right before Nolan's return expedition, but it was pinpointed on Shandora to the point where Cricket never mentioned a knockup stream that was off the coast of modern Jaya, where Shandora would have been, which kind of implies that the first knockup stream was targeted, which is an incredibly crazy detail. If the Gorosei can control the knockup stream, maybe that's why it took 2 years after the reverie to be able to activate whatever mechanism is behind the knockup stream. Cricket gave us a soft theory of how it works. He says there's an enormous cavity beneath the sea, and through a fluctuation of cold and hot water, it creates a giant steam pressure thing. But the issue with this is, why does it move? Also in a semi-predictable pattern. This implies that it's not a geological occurrence, but something else. But we still don't have enough info on this. I mean, at one point I was like, what if it's just a giant whale or something? And I did catch on to a really interesting connection relating to snakes, but I'll save that for a smaller knockup stream video. That being said, let's look at this from a different angle then. What was the result of the first knockup stream? The first knockup stream completely wiped an island or part of an island off the map entirely. Isn't there another place that we know of that the world government has claimed to have just disappeared from the map? Yeah, that would be God Valley. What if this is how the world government managed to wipe it from the map, and God Valley was the second place if there weren't more in between that this weapon was used against? But there might be a...
I mean, dang, bro, like what is like the world government, right? What do they have that is doing this, right? It, like I said, Uranus, I think is possible. But I don't know if I would say the world government has Uranus. I mean, maybe they could. I guess they could have it. You know, could it be Eem? Could it be Eem? Could this be like Eem's power that we're seeing? You know, or maybe like the combined might of the Gorosei, possibly. You know, like maybe they each have abilities that together, like each of them have devil fruits abilities that together they can do such things. They can wipe countries off. Like maybe the Gorosei equally, like together equal. They equal a ancient weapon, right? Because like think about it. What about the red line? The red line, I think it was mentioned somewhere. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was mentioned somewhere that the red line is not a natural. It wasn't naturally there. I could be wrong, but I feel as though somebody pointed that out to me, that it wasn't, that the red line wasn't natural. You know, and if it's not natural, that means somebody possibly created the red line. You know, and if let's say the world government are like removing islands from existence or creating knockup streams and doing all this stuff, could they also have created the red line as well to kind of create like a divide in the world? You know, let's continue.
A huge difference here. See, there were two coincidences, not just the knock-up stream hitting Shandora, but also the Emperor Cloud being positioned perfectly to catch Shandora. What would have happened if the cloud wasn't there? Wouldn't the entire island just crash back into the ocean and be destroyed? Maybe it even split up? Maybe something like the place on Balloon Terminal was God Valley. Maybe that's why we saw Kaido there at his introduction? But I'm just throwing out an idea. That being said, the movement of the Emperor Cloud is very interesting because it seems like it might migrate, and I wonder if it can be controlled. Maybe that power is Uranus? That sounds crazy, but I'll explain what I mean by this in a future video. So at the end of the day, I think it's a fair assumption to make that the Gorosei proactively took out Nolan, like they should have done to Roger. He survived their perilous trip, they shot the knock-up stream possibly, but then after they set up and forced the execution and the slander thereafter by propagating the news of Nolan the liar, which again is their signature mark of manipulating the true history of the world. So now I want to add on some additional thoughts to this line of thinking. So a theory that I was formulating while I was making my Vanderdecken video, the Mad Tail thumbnail video, is that maybe there are other paths to the true history other than studying the poneglyphs. I think each generation there is some sort of trend that the Gorosei have to smother out in order to conceal the void history. See, in the line of thinking that the Gorosei used the knock-up stream to hit Shandora, I was thinking, isn't that way too aggressive? I mean, they didn't even do that with Ohara. But with Ohara, it was a bit different because they needed to destroy the knowledge to read the poneglyphs, knowing that they couldn't destroy the poneglyph itself. They had to confiscate it instead. But what's weird is that reading poneglyphs seems to be a trend in our timeline with Rox, Roger, Ohara, but with Noland and Luvial Kingdom, they shouldn't have had any worry about them reading the poneglyphs. So that's when I realized something really interesting. The trend in Nolan's time wasn't reading poneglyphs or pirating, it was simply adventuring, and a line stuck out to me. Kalgara's daughter asked who Nolan was. His crew responds, he's an explorer. He's famous in our kingdom. He's also a botanist. He goes to uncharted islands all over the world, discovering new varieties of plants and studying them, and there are plenty of explorers that have interest in plants. It's an important role in any country. And I was like, wait, it's an important role in any country? That's interesting because we don't have any notable people in our timeline besides Heracles and Torino Kingdom that has a significant interest in botany. It's even more interesting because in my recent videos, I highlighted the increasing thematic when it comes to nature, Green Bull's powers, the forest god possibility, Emu also being in the Chamber of Flowers, and so I was thinking maybe the world government during Nolan's time used Nolan as an example to deter other people from becoming adventuring botanists just like they did with Roger and pirating, but failed, whereas with Nolan they succeeded. But even more than that, what if they did that because they were worried someone stumbling upon the Void Century through means that are unconventional to us but would make a lot of sense for the story? So the idea that poneglyphs aren't the only ways to learn the Void Century is actually supported by Roger. With the voice of all things, the poneglyphs may not be the only way to.
So I'm thinking, I'm believing what you're saying is maybe botany, right? Maybe through the study of plants. Maybe plants may also have like maybe there are plants out there that can tell you the history of what happened in the void century. Because I mean that's not far off, right? It's not far off. I think like some trees you could date how old a tree is. Like there's people who could date how old trees are and other plants are, right? Like plants that have been around for long periods of time. Now, how would you get the history of the world from a plant though, right? Like that is the question. How would you be able to get the history of the world studying plants? I don't know. Let's see. Let's see if Par has the answer to this.
To learn the void history. Think about it. We have an example in story of someone learning about the void century without the glyphs. It's Momo, and not through Odin's journal, but instead Zunisha, an entity that existed in the void century, has told Momo key details about Joy Boy and associated details along with it. Zunisha itself is essentially a walking poneglyph. But then, what about the Sea Kings? They seem to be knowledgeable about Noah and the ancient past and ancient clans, and Shirahoshi and others can hear them. But imagine if Shirahoshi just asked them about the Void Century. I'd imagine they would know a lot. So here's another example of how someone could learn of the Void Century without poneglyphs. So why is this relevant to this theory? Well, let's bring it back to botany. Through studying botany, is there a way someone could reach the truth of the Void Century? Well, actually, I mean, there's a huge one, which...
Oh, you know what I just thought about? And I'm pretty sure, I feel as though Parvision's he might be going this way. But I want to see if my future sight hockey is working right now. You know, it might be a little cloudy today. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. It might be a little cloudy. But think about the Adam tree and the Eve tree, right? You could probably get some answers from the Adam tree and the Eve tree, especially if they are the producers of the devil fruits. You know what I'm saying? Learning about the devil fruits could potentially give you the history of the world. I kind of have a theory that the devil fruits themselves are like the spirits or the souls of like the ancient people who may have discovered a way to use hockey in order to achieve certain abilities, right? Because look, one example is Nika. We know that Nika was legend has it Nika was a person who existed that used to liberate people, right? He used to liberate slaves. And if Nika did indeed exist, what do we know now? That Monkey D. Luffy, his devil fruit is the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika. So he actually has a devil fruit that was a person that existed in the story of One Piece. You could probably argue Sengoku, because Sengoku has the Buddha devil fruit, but we don't know if Buddha actually existed in the world of One Piece. So, but maybe a lot of these other devil fruits that we have, like let's say Aokiji's ice devil fruit, or Akainu's magma devil fruit, Ace's fire devil fruit, any devil fruit, maybe those were from the souls of people who gained these abilities through hockey. You know what I mean? So there's that possibility. So we also know about them trees that they was talking about, like the trees had like the souls of the dead within them. So, you know, maybe if you study trees that had souls of the dead within them, maybe you could get answers. Yeah, let's continue. This is getting juicy. Which
is devil fruits. I would imagine if you had a peak scholar like Professor Clover, but instead with botany, they would be able to crack the code of devil fruits. And who knows what truth that would unlock, since we are 1,053 chapters into the story and still have no clue about devil fruits. So there's that, but there's something even
I was
more
close.
vital.
I was
So
close.
there is something else special about Shandora, or ancient Jaya, that it might also have in common with a few key places, which is graveyards. Specifically on Shandora, there was the Forest of the Ancestor Trees. Kalgara's daughter says the souls of our ancestors who had died on this island over the past several centuries are said to dwell in them, guided there by the sound of the bell. They are white holy trees. All of our ancestors who lived on this island ever since the age of Shandora watch over us from those trees. To us, the Shandians, the forest of the ancestor trees was something precious, even sacred. We protected them as we would our own lives. This thematic is something that actually is in common with a lot of the islands that are special to us, like Fishman Island, Zo, and Wano. Wano, for example, has all the samurai, even Ryuma, buried and somewhat preserved with the internal graves. But that being said, another interesting note about the forest of the ancestors on Jaya is that they are white holy trees. I'm going to make a video in the future about the color white in One Piece. I mean, it's really crazy, like the white holy trees and then sun god Nika's form, and then also the white boars on Wano being the agents of God. But aside from all that, if this were really the case with these ancestor trees, that they actually house the souls of the ancestors from the ancient Shandora, then this is yet another way that if you had the voice of all things and were researching plans, you could maybe end up hearing the souls of the trees and they could tell you the true history of the world, which might be what the Gorosei were afraid of, rather than Nolan finding the poneglyph and reading it, because at the time it wasn't really known whether many people knew the text, since modern Ohara didn't exist and Wano was closed off. Which also makes me wonder if Brook could interact with the souls of these ancestor trees. If another similar situation shows up, maybe Elbaf will have more information in a similar form, like a great.
I'm curious if Big Mom could interact with the souls of them ancient trees, right? Because she, where Brook, he could like manipulate his soul, but Big Mom could actually manipulate what souls outside of herself. So I think if anybody, Big Mom probably could. I think Big Mom and Brook could potentially, maybe interact with those souls, or the souls within anything. You know what I mean? Let's continue.
Graveyard. But by now, you're probably tired hearing all these offshoots of this Noland idea, but it's literally never ending. There's still more. So to cap off this ancestral talk, it's interesting because Shandora had these pure white holy trees creating the forest of the ancestors. Fishman Island had the forest of the sea, which was blessed with life, but was the graveyard for all the ships that have sunken throughout the world, which is super interesting. It says all of the ships. And the land is apparently really fertile, indicated by the whale's presence. The Minks also had an ancestral land, but also have the Sulong form that when they're in the visual sight of the full moon, they access their ancestral memories and become.
I never caught that. Like the graveyard of all the ships, all the sunken ships. Like, so it like would Mary be there? Cause we didn't see Mary there when we went to even though Mary got burnt, so I don't know, maybe not. Cause Mary was set on fire, so I don't. There might be some parts of Mary somewhere in the sea. I don't know. But if, let's say, you go to this graveyard, could you see a bunch of like Clopperton men? I always say their name wrong. Clopperton men. Like, would you see like a bunch of them? Like, would they come alive and be having parties and all that stuff? Like, maybe you need somebody like Brooke or Big Mom to bring out those Clobotterman. You need like Big Mom or Brooke to, like maybe Brooke start playing some music, but like he's at the graveyard, all these Clopperton men come out, start dancing and getting jiggy with it. You know what I mean? Play some Will Smith, getting jiggy with it. Na 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 na. Let's continue.
Full white. Then on Wano, we have the Ringo graveyard, which has a bunch of weapons as tombstones essentially, and it's covered in white snow. Then with Sun God Nika, there might be another ancestral connection there with the pure white form. So that was an idea, but what I thought was more important was this next part. It seems like right now there's a common theme of the Gorosei burning things down that they don't like. Ohara got Buster called and burned to the ground. Then we're still unsure of what happened to Okyo Kingdom, Nami's place of origin, which seemed to share a similar fate, but also the kingdom is Tokyo Kingdom just backwards, so it shares a similar thing as Elbaf being Fable, but also this is another direct connection to Japan, so maybe somehow they're related to Wano. So it makes you wonder, is this part of their method of the Great Cleansing in this era? And it makes me wonder even more, what did they do back in Nolan's time? And that's when I thought of two things. Tree fever could have been a way the world government was instigating a great cleansing back in the day. The way Nolan's right hand described it was that it ravaged and destroyed many small kingdoms and islands. The other part of this line of thinking was, how did the forest of ancestors' holy white trees even get infected? According to Kalgara, they were isolated for 400 years with no visitors on the land, but somehow their most important section of forest got infected with an illness that was widespread outside of the island, which kind of implies that there was some sort of external interaction with Jaya. Or it could simply be a coincidental spawn of the exact same tree fever that Nolan experienced outside of Jaya, which is a little weird. But so let me get something out of the way before I get to Nolan's name stuff. So this is a really funny thought that I had. So I always joked about how it's funny that the world government demonized Roger as a pirate king, but in reality, he was just a man looking for rocks on islands. And the funny connection is that Roger's rival's name is Rocks. And this joke will be even funnier if you watch my Mad Tail video about the Mushroom Pirate King, which inspired this video actually. But so if Nolan was Roger's predecessor essentially, but rather than researching rocks, Nolan was a botanist that studied plants, what's really funny is that I found definitive proof that Vanderdecken, the original one, was probably a Kinokobito, which are a race of mushroom people. So that means Nolan's rival, had he had a fuller life, might have been a mushroom, which is ironic since he was a botanist, similar to the naming pattern with Roger's rival Rocks. And now that I brought up Vanderdecken, I think a slight addition to the previous theory that I want to make is that I think the original Vanderdecken might have been searching for Shandora, or El Dorado possibly, learning the news from the Reverie where Louvniel Kingdom would have divulged the information, but also maybe they just heard it from Nolan's book. The last line in Nolan's book said he theorized Jaya sunk, which is why Cricket was diving in the ocean to search for it. And it might be that Vanderdecken did the same thing as part of his introduction song was saying that he was looking for sunken treasure specifically. Now to finally cap off this Nolan video with some ideas that might give some clarity to his name. So I think even if some of this theory is true, it makes a lot of sense that rather than pure misfortune, Nolan was instead a victim of the schemes of the Gorosei, which might sound odd considering the current sentiment that they are incompetent, but when you look back at Nolan's story, it really does make sense that the Gorosei had some involvement in his demise, which makes it feel like they gave Nolan the D-Clan treatment by demonizing and slandering them. It's also so crazy that it just happens that 100 reveries ago was perfect.
He got the D treatment because it's Nolan, or it's Nolan D, what is it? Nolan D Montblanc? Nolan D Montblanc. I'll be forgetting which one is his yeah. But I find it weird, right? Like I kind of find it funny where it's like we kind of associate Luffy with Goldie Roger, right? But then like especially in Dressrosa, we kind of connect Usopp with Nolan. You know, so Luffy gets connected to Roger, but Usopp gets connected to Nolan. So is that saying? So what does that say about Usopp, the god, right? God Usopp. Put some respect on it. Put some respect on it. Let's continue.
Timed within Nolan's story for this story to be implemented. Like, this is honestly sort of a laugh tale when you think about it. Once Cricket learned the truth of Nolan, he couldn't help but smile and cry, just like Roger did at Laugh Tale. But speaking about the Reverie, I was invited to this year's Reverie, Reverie X, hosted by JD Legend on July 8th, which I'm really hyped for since I didn't even have my channel when the last Reverie happened, and here I am. Along with that, I will be hard pushing my backlog of theory videos that I have been talking.
Hey man, shout out to Parvision, man. Shout out to him for being part of the Reverie, man, for making it on, man. That's what's up, man. I'm happy. I'm happy for you. You know, it shows that progress you made.
About for a while. The next 2 weeks will be filled with exciting videos. So if you like this video so far, please like, share, and subscribe. Mainly share, to be honest, because when I tell you the upcoming Void Century video is absolutely bonkers, and it connects back to all of this, and I'm not exaggerating. Well, in general, most of my theories connect, but yeah, I can't wait to connect with you all through the Reverie, which is so exciting. But anyways, continuing on with the other connections. I think Noland was actually a D-Clan member, which is something I was hinting at throughout this entire video, making his name possibly Nolan D. Montblanc, which would make his name share a similar system as Trafalgar D. Water Law. In Law's name, the D referring to the D-Clan, obviously.
Hey, look. Gold D. Roger, right? A lot of people call him Gold Roger. Like the world government will call him Gold Rogers because they wanna suppress the whole D clan thing, right? The whole will of D. So they put the D, they combined the gold and the D together and just made him Gold Roger. So I could see them since Parvision over here making all these parallels to Roger, right? Same could go with the name. I'm surprised Goldie Roger wasn't the first name you brought up, but same with that. We had Gold D Roger, but they pretty much combined it and we got Gold Roger. You know, so maybe they made him Noland Montblanc instead of Nolan D Montblanc, because again, that's them trying to suppress that D initial.
But Law had said that the water in his name is his secret name that was kept for generations. Similarly, maybe Nolan's secret name is Mont or Mountain, which might have made him an even bigger target. And there's another connection to that white theme that I was talking about earlier. His name is Montblanc or White Mountain. And what's interesting is just like gold, including the D in his name made his name more convenient, like how Noland is No Land, which fits the liar No Land story. But Nolan D could also make a lot of sense. So Nolan is a more common name with Irish roots, which if you were in my last Voice of All Things stream when I talked about a possible relation of Laughtale and Ireland, which you can go back and check or wait for a future video if I have time for it. But anyways, apparently Nolan's Irish meaning would be champion, which fits Nolan really well because I think he was a champion. But in general, I think hidden names are going to play a huge role in the upcoming story, and it might be relevant to Wano as well. So White and Tsunachi are 2 major hints of the focus of my next 2 major videos. In conclusion with Nolan though, I think his major issue was that he worked with the government in his good nature, when the world that he lived in did not value free growth. In a lot of ways, the world government is looking to maintain the equilibrium, and so balance breakers like Nolan, Luffy, Robin, Ace, and Roger are threats just by their pure potential. If Nolan just sailed freely like Roger, then the world government would never have known about this expedition, and maybe he would have lived to turn the world upside down by finding Laughtale 400 years ago. And I hope I turned your world upside down. I think there was more to cover regarding Nolan despite how little info we got. There's still the segment about snakes that I'm holding on to, but my goal with the Vanderdecken and now Nolan video was not necessarily to prove my theories correct, but rather bring these neglected pieces of information back to the surface that may be relevant for the last saga. And given Nolan's mysterious continued relevance to the story, I think some of these details might actually come back in full force. Like the mystery of the knock-up streams. If the Gorosei control it, then that is huge. But also Nolan liberated the Tontada in his time, and not too different than Luffy. And more than that, Oda actually made Nolan relevant again through the Road to Laughtale Volume 1 release. He mentioned that the last lode poneglyph could be on Vera, which was an island liberated by the Revolutionary Army, but also this kingdom was introduced to us through the Nolan story. Apparently he visited them 2 years before Jaya and learned about Sky Islands from Vera. The fact that Oda even included Vera in the Road to Laughtale drop.
I think Shanks probably has the that last poneglyph. Either Shanks or Blackbeard. I think one of them might have it, honestly. You know, so I mean, could it have been on Vera? Possibly, but I think Shanks probably got a hold of it. You know, or Blackbeard, one or the other. You know, maybe Blackbeard moved it to Full of Lead or wherever. I don't know, but that's kind of where I think. You know, I think one of the Yonko have it pretty much. You know, we already know that. Like maybe if Whitebeard had that poneglyph. Maybe after Blackbeard pretty much took over his territory, maybe maybe Blackbeard got it, you know. Or unless Whitebeard had it on his island. I forgot what his island was called, but the island that Marco was protecting. Maybe that's why Marco was protecting the island, to make sure nobody get to that poneglyph. Man, I'm just saying. But it could have been on Vera though. You know, it could have been on Vera and then moved from Vera. But you know, it's still possible. It's still on Vera though.
Just tells me how Oda does have plot points that seem so obscure to us, but they might be even more relevant than we realize. And in that regard, I think my channel is one of the best places to find the craziest connections. So I appreciate all of you who are tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this Nolan rant. If you love One Piece and want to see endless One Piece conversations, join my Discord or keep an eye out for my streams, because somehow I just end up endlessly talking about One Piece all the time. And if you want to support my channel, please check the links in the description box below. It really helps a lot. But more than anything, hype me up at the Reverie and share my channel. And so, like always, thank you for connecting with me, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you all on the next Parvision.
Hey, the link to this video, if you're watching us on YouTube, the link to this video will be in the description box below. So pretty much the idea was that the world government pretty much wanted to get rid of Montblanc, right? Because he was an explorer. World government ain't like that. He was a botanist. That's another thing the world government didn't like, because, you know, maybe there's more routes, you know, and which makes sense, because One Piece shows, you know, like there's been a lot of symbolism that there's multiple routes to get to the same point, right? So that can also expand on there's multiple routes in learning the history of the world. And maybe one of those routes was through botany, through the study of plants, especially somebody who studies plants and they have the voice of all things. Maybe, you know, they be able to hear some of like the old ancient plants that have been around for, you know, hundreds of years, you know, since the Void Century. Maybe they could get answers through these plants, such as those trees that we seen in the Jaya art, you know, the trees of the dead, you know. So maybe, you know, maybe there's something to it. Maybe Nolan was flying a little too close to the sun, right? Kind of like Icarus, right? That whole mythology of Icarus. He flew a little close to the sun. Maybe Nolan was flying a little too close to the sun, kind of like Roger flew a little close to the sun, right? So the world government was like, hey, we can't have that. So if that was the case, maybe the whole knock-up stream, knocking up part of Jaya, was part of the world government's plan. Maybe somebody has an ability to do that. Could have been Uranus. You know, it could have been Uranus. You know, I already kind of have a theory that Uranus has something to do with weather control. It would make sense. You know, why don't we even talk about Uranus that much? You know, why don't we have any idea where Uranus is? You know, could it be because it's under world government protection? Could be. It could be. Parvision said Brooks' pirate crew was musicians just having concerts, but they were deemed pirates. Maybe they didn't want music to be encouraged like that. Bink Saki being spread around. That's true. That's facts. That is facts. You know, it'll be wild if, like, let's say you kind of need, like, you need all these different paths to a degree in order to find the One Piece, right? Or in order to find the true history. Like, you may not be able to get all the history of the world strictly through poneglyphs. Like, you might need music as well, or you might need some plants, or like botany to a degree. I don't know. And Parvision said, there is definitely multiple paths. Parvision said, then look at Luffy's crew. Mwahaha. He got all the pieces. Science as well, right? Science. Cause if Pluton shows that there was science back in the Void Century. So maybe, somebody like Frankie helps, through science. Robin, of course, knows she knows how to read the poneglyphs. Brooke could get in touch with souls, So maybe if Brooke was able to interact with the souls of like certain plants, possibly, or Chopper, or you know what, Usopp is kind of versed in botany as well. Usopp is kind of versed in botany as well. When he went to that island with the I forgot his name, Hercules or whatever his name is, and he learned how to use plants. Usopp got a little knowledge in botany, and he like I said earlier, he's where we got a Luffy who's connected to Goldie Roger. Usopp's the one who's kind of connected to Nolan, and he got some botany skills as well. So there's that. Hold on real quick. Let me make sure I give Parvision a like and everything. Change my camera as well. Yeah, Usopp knows botany. And if Usopp somehow is able to get the voice of all things, he could be a key to something. But yeah, Luffy potentially does have all he potentially has all the pieces that he may need to get the whole history, the full history of the world and the Void Century and everything. Now I do think Robin being able to read the poneglyph, that is going to be the chunk of learning the history of the Void Century. But like Parvision said, there's multiple paths to take. There's multiple paths we could take to get to the same answers, and maybe Robin may not be able to get all the answers through the poneglyphs. So you may need a botanist such as Usopp, or you may need a musician who can decipher lyrics and stuff such as Brooke, possibly a scientist such as Frankie. You know what I mean? Like Frankie already is the connection to Pluton. We learned from Ennis Lobby. So maybe all this could culminate to something, But yeah, anyway, make sure you hit that like button. Also subscribe, hit that bell for notification. And also the link to this video will be in the description box. So y'all make sure y'all, go show Parvision that love. And follow me on Twitch. Also my Discord. Join the Discord. The community is growing, so join the Discord. Anyway, y'all, it's your boy Sean P, the Bluff God. Y'all have a good evening. Hope to see you guys tomorrow or whatever. I'm out of here. Peace.